At the start of the 20th century, America's role in the world shifted drastically after their impact in World War I. Jumping headlong into a war would bring obvious repercussions to any country, but America was reeling with internal struggles by the end of World War I. Because even before America left its footprint in the minds of the enemy soldiers they stomped on, American states were already in heated discourse about alcohol and the idea of prohibition.
About 10% of Americans cited German as their first language in the 1910 U.S. Census, and following America's aforementioned headlong jump into World War I, anything German was hated with the burning passion of patriotic Americans, including beer. Following this, albeit less than rational turn on German Americanism, the ban on alcohol reached its peak with 21 states banning the spread, sale, and consumption of alcohol before the 18th Amendment was officially passed. World War I was not only a bridge into the prominent American influence, but the entryway to the passing of the 18th Amendment and the start of the Prohibition era. The full adoption of the Prohibition Act escalated crime involving mafias, transcontinental trade, and contraband spreading over U.S. territory, and quarreling among U.S. citizens about dealing with economic disruption. Signed on January 19, 1919, the 18th Amendment was passed prohibiting the manufacture, sale, and transportation of all intoxicating liquors. However, nothing changed at all. In fact, alcohol rose in popularity.
With the compounding interest in sale of alcohol, America strong-armed its will to ban alcohol through the Volstead Act. Originally pitched in October of 1919, the Volstead Act would clearly define the manufacturing process and the sale of alcohol, and even more clearly ban them with harsh punishments in store for those who chose to violate the act. Although it was not in effect in 1920 when it was initially pitched, the Volstead Act bared its teeth, roaring into the 20s. The bark of the Volstead Act was the bite of rising crime rates. Prominent topics shifted from, wow, there's no alcohol, to how can we make alcohol? Following the Volstead Act was a 24% crime rate increase, civil unrest, and general discontent with the act. Prominent mafia and gangsters rose to power, speakeasies burrowed themselves in the holes in the wall of every town you could see, and the government's control of the situation slowly ebbed away. A speakeasy was an underground nightclub or bar that served illegally made alcohol that would tell their patrons to speak easy about it or just keep pumping down. But you may ask, how do the speakeasies acquire the alcohol required to serve patrons? Well, like large mafia members and gangsters showed us, they would import alcohol from neighboring countries. These intercontinental trades would test America's ties with the likes of Canada and Mexico, which directly helped the social uprising taking place at the time. America's debate on the topic of alcohol and drugs reared its head as the public became more and more unstable. Instead of helping, the prohibition made citizens uneasy, so they turned to other sources for their indulgences. Gangsters would travel to other countries and buy drugs and alcohol to fuel America's underground. America responded by retaliating against Canada and Mexico, weakening North America's generally positive relations. Debate sparked over if prohibition was really helping America. How are they going to make it effective? How are they going to lower crime rates? Why is prohibition a thing if it isn't actually helping America? With all of these questions bloating the collective consciousness, America began burning bridges and taking matters into their own hands, often making some less than rational decisions.
From the point the prohibition law was enacted, many knew it was fated to fail and people would be allowed to sell alcohol again. However, the U.S. government was stubborn, confident their decision to ban alcohol would lead to a greater America. U.S. officials set in place the Volstead Act, which conveyed the seriousness and support for the 18th Amendment. Most of the intended growth or advancements expected to pass after banning alcohol never occurred. Instead, Americans became unemployed and the income tax on alcohol many states relied on became non-existent.
On December 5th of 1933, the 21st Amendment was ratified, lifting the effects of the 18th Amendment and by extension the Volstead Act. America, still bleeding from indecision as well as the general public's negative well-being, picked itself back up and made up every relation they could. Whether it was Canada, Mexico, or its own peoples, The idea of prohibition was accepted as a failure, and America gradually rebuilt those burned bridges, bringing back life to what it once was before the war of alcohol raged inside the belly of America's consciousness.